On October 20th, 2007, 16-year-old Daniel Petrick killed his mother and shot his father in the head because they forbade him to play Halo 3, a violent first-person shooter video game. Petrick was addicted to the game when his parents decided to take it away. Because of his addiction, it did not affect him when he shot his parents because he was in a state of mind where killing a real person was no different from killing a person in the game. Petrick has been in jail, obviously, since the event. While people believe violence does alter the mind, violent video games are being utilized by the U.S. military to train new recruits. This is shown in a game called America's Army, which is initially a recruiting game that involves you playing as an American soldier killing people online. This is used by the military because the game helps new recruits to overcome psychological effects of shooting people and killing through inhumane ways. Although violent video games are popular, violence is also depicted in movies. The difference in playing a violent video game and watching a violent movie is that in the game, you are pulling the trigger to shoot an enemy, while in a movie, you are just watching someone else do it. Therefore, my claim is that playing violent video games negatively affects behavioral patterns. The term violence engages in gun shooting, various forms of killing, and physical assault. For example, in the game Grand Theft Auto, your character has the ability to steal cars, loot for guns, and shoot the people when they come after you. Also, Gears of War 2, released November 2008, lets your character use a chainsaw to cut people in half. Other factors affected by violence in video games involve 1. Increased aggression, 2. Hostile personality, and 3. A reduced emotional reaction to real-life violence. First, violent video games encourage aggressiveness. Aggressiveness incorporates the idea of uncalled for anger, irritation, and fury toward the public. Craig Anderson and Brad Bushman from the American Psychological Society conducted a study of the possible connection between violent video games and aggression. It was discovered that violent video games do increase aggression by means of increased aggressive thoughts in a person. Such aggression can lead to antisocial interactions, bullying, fighting, and criminal behavior. According to the International Business Times, the top-selling video game of 2009 was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, another first-person shooter game. The game has grossed over $1 billion in sales since the release just in November and is still increasing. The game depicts violence at its finest with the use of heavy artillery as the answer to the problems and portrayals of bloodshed in the most cruelest form. Secondly, violence through video games trigger hostile personalities. One who develops a hostile personality engages in antagonizing others, unfriendliness, and being involved in fights more often. According to the American Psychological Association, the average person is exposed to violent video games for at least 53 minutes per day. Because a person is exposed to the violence at a daily rate, it prompts a fascination of brutality and bloodshed to be incorporated into daily life. A person exposed to violent video games for a longer period of time increases their attraction not only to the game, but also to the concept of the violence. Lastly, violent video games reduce emotional reactions to real-life violence. Reduced emotional reactions indicate feeling less sympathy and compassion when various acts of violence are witnessed. Take, for example, seeing a man being held at gunpoint in an alley. A person that has been exposed to violent video games that use guns will not take any action to such a sight because he or she will be afraid of the consequences of getting involved. As a result, violence becomes the normal, everyday thing in life. In conclusion, violent video games affect behavioral patterns negatively by encouraging aggressiveness, triggering a hostile personality, and reducing emotional reactions to real-life violence. Through the violence in video games, aggression induces bullying and fighting, while hostile personalities set off a fascination over cruelty and mayhem. Because the top-selling video games have extreme forms of violence, more people can use the violence in video games and make connections to solve real-life problems with the violence that they learned, disregarding the idea that violence is never the answer. Thank you.
Well, let me start with the evidence instead of the structure things. I thought you did a pretty good job giving us examples to illustrate points. You presented some authorities in interpreting what the impact might be. You had a study or two that you cited. I thought on the third point there were some things that were a little bit conclusionary, but on the first and second points you did a much better job. And you typically cited the sources, at least at the beginning, on those particular points. I did think that it was a little bit of a problem. You basically have a speech that's 5 minutes in length, and for the first minute and a half, we don't know what the proposition is. You take a while to get to the proposition. I like the background that you started with, but it then seemed like it went on and on and on. And I'm starting to write down, wait, no proposition here. And then all of a sudden it comes in. I'm going, oh, okay, there it is. And then you rush through a preview, which is basically, the terms that identify what the secondary points are going to be instead of the claims. Now, when you get to the claims, the supporting points, you do have declarative statements on those claims, and that part's good. So I thought that you did a good job on citing that and giving it some structure. It did seem like you were rushing a little bit. You can probably pace yourself a little bit more. So I think pretty good on the supporting information. There is a structure there. It's mostly technique stuff that you need to work on. Excuse me. I'm sorry about the coughing. I'm almost done, I think, with all this stuff. And when I can scream again, I think I can out-yell her.
She is next door, isn't she?
Yeah.
I thought closing the door would help.
I don't know what that...
class was, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
We got, I had to do, a double take. I'm like, all that's coming out of that one little woman. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what it is the class is, but boy, it must be something that's pretty dramatic because she's got a lot of yelling going on.
Is the camera still on? Yeah.